Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, what I'm going to be doing is going over Pygame for beginners. So as you can already see here, I have a little game on my screen. The purpose of this video is going to be to introduce you to the module called Pygame in Python. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff in this video, including sound effects, images, moving objects, collision, most of the fundamental and main things you need to know to actually create a game. And well, to give you an idea of what we're going to be building, it's nothing complex. This isn't meant to be fancy. Again, it's just meant to teach you how to work with this module. And I figured we could do this kind of really simple two-player game to give you an idea of how everything works in Pygame. So you can see we kind of have two spaceships here. They can move around the screen, and I'm moving these with the same keyboard. So I have WASD moving the one on the left, and I have the arrow keys moving the one on the right. And when I press the left or right control key, that is actually firing bullets. Now there is sound effects. I don't know if you guys can hear them. I'll stop talking and hit it for a second. So you might be able to hear that. Either way, there is sound effects. We'll be adding that in there, and we'll show you how this works. And you can see that once one of the enemies loses, so they run out of health, you can see that at the top, it says boom, yellow wins. And even though I have these on the wrong side, we'll fix that in the original video. Anyways, you get the idea. This is the yellow spaceship. This is the red spaceship. Really, they should be on opposite sides. For the tutorial, we'll fix that. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, I need to quickly thank the sponsor of this video. Before we get started, I need to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Algo Expert. Algo Expert is the best platform to use when preparing for your software engineering coding interviews, and has the highest quality coding interview practice questions. With over 115 practice questions, detailed solutions in 9 of the most popular programming languages, a feature-packed browser-based coding environment, extensive test suites, and conceptual overviews and code walkthroughs for each and every problem, Algo Expert is the best resource to use to ace your coding interviews. Algo Expert also has a data structures crash course, coding interview assessments, and a brand new mock interviews feature. I can highly recommend Algo Expert as a former customer myself and now an official instructor on the platform. Get started using Algo Expert today by hitting the link in the description and using the code TechWithTim for a discount on the platform. All right, so big thank you again to that sponsor. Now let's go ahead and continue. So the first thing we need to do when we're going to be working with the module called Pygame is we need to install it on our computer. Now for some people, this can be tricky. It really shouldn't be that difficult, but what you need to do is open your command prompt or open some terminal window, depending on what operating system you're on. If you're on Windows, you're going to open command prompt. If you're on Mac or Linux, you're going to open your terminal. Now, this command may vary based on your operating system. I'll go through all of the different variations, but the first thing you want to type inside of your command prompt, doesn't matter what directory you're in, is pip install and then simply the module Pygame. Go ahead and press enter. That should install Pygame in your Python interpreter and your Python environment. Then you should be good to go. Now, if for some reason this isn't working, or when we get to the next step, which is just testing our code and importing Pygame, you don't see anything happening, try the following command, pip3 install Pygame. So just add a 3 to the end of pip there. Oops, I didn't mean to delete the 3, but pip3 install Pygame. Hopefully that one should work for you. And if neither of those work for you, then try the following, python-m pip install and then Pygame like that. And if this one doesn't work either, then do the same variation. So add python3-m pip install Pygame. If none of those 4 commands work for you and you can't install Pygame, I'll leave links to videos in the description that show you how to fix your pip. They're not directly called that, but actually this will be perfect for this because they are how to install Pygame on Mac and Windows respectively. Anyways, let's continue. Now we have Pygame installed. We're going to head to some environment that we're going to write code in. You can do this in the default IDLE, so the thing that just comes with the basic Python installation, or you can use something like VS Code, Sublime Text, whatever you want. So I'm going to be using VS Code. This just makes it easy for me to run my code by pressing the run button up here. But again, feel free to use whatever you want. You don't need to use VS Code. It doesn't matter what you use. We're just going to do everything in one file anyways. Now that reminds me that before we actually jump in, we need to download some assets for this game. So you saw I had a background, I had those spaceships. All of the stuff, including the code for this tutorial, is going to be available on GitHub. So I will leave a link in the description. What you're going to need to do is download this assets folder mainly. You can download the code file as well, which will be uploaded here with the entire code for this video afterwards. But to do that, you're just going to press the link. It should bring you to a page that looks like this. You're going to press code and then download zip. Now, if you understand how to use GitHub, obviously I don't need to tell you how to do this, but downloading the zip file. So let's actually just do it on here to make sure everything's going to be all good. So I'll put that into my downloads. Then you're going to open up the zip folder. You're going to go inside the interior folder. You're going to grab the assets folder. On Windows, I usually like to just cut it. So Control X, you can also copy it, and you're going to paste it beside wherever your Python file is. So if you have your Python file on your desktop, I would recommend, first of all, you put it in a folder called, Pygame for beginners or whatever. Then just put this file beside it so that you have the assets folder, and then whatever your main Python file is in the same directory. That's really important. So anyways, do that, and then we can go ahead and continue. All right, so apologize for the intro, but let's get into this. The first thing we're going to do now, and notice that I have Pygame tutorial, and then I have my assets in my main.py file. Obviously, create a new Python file, and inside of that file, you're going to type import Pygame. This is just to make sure that this is working. So we're going to import Pygame, then we're going to run the code. You can see it kind of pops up a little terminal right here. And notice it says module not found, no module named Pygame. Now, I'll fix that on my end, but make sure you guys don't get this message. If you get, hey, welcome to Pygame or some little text like that, you're good to go and you're ready to continue. So I'll be back after I fix this for myself. All right, so I'm back. You can see I'm now getting the message Pygame 1.9.6, doesn't matter what version you're using. Hello from the Pygame community, and we're all good to go and get started. Now, one last note here. I'm just trying to cover all of the issues that happen. Do not name your Python file Pygame. If you do that, it will not work. So just name it anything other than Pygame. Very important. Okay, now that we have that, let's get started. So first of all, what is Pygame? Well, Pygame is a 2D graphics library that lets you make little games. It's actually really powerful. I've created a ton of awesome projects using Pygame, and well, it's pretty simple to actually set up. The first thing that we need to do whenever we kind of start making a game in Pygame is we need to make the main surface. Now, I usually just refer to this as the window. Again, you can call it whatever you want, but in Pygame, everything that we're working with is usually referred to as a surface, so you might hear me use that term. But anyways, I'm going to start in all capitals. I'll tell you why in a second. I'm going to say win equals Pygame dot display dot set underscore mode. And then inside of here, we're going to put a tuple, and we're going to put the width and the height that we want the window to be. So it's usually good practice to define two variables above this that says width, comma height, and then is equal to whatever you want the width and the height of this game to be. Now, I'm going to make mine 900 by 500. If you're on a really low resolution display, this might take up like a large chunk of the display. So feel free to scale these numbers down. It doesn't really matter what you make the width and the height, but it might affect what you want to make the dimensions of, say, the background or the images later on. Anyways, we're going to say width height equals 900, 500, win equals pygame.display.set underscore mode. And then inside of here, I'm going to say, in all capitals, width height. So I'm pretty much telling Pygame, hey, let's make a new window that is of this width and this height, and I've defined those both above. The reason I'm using all capitals here is usually it's just good convention to define all of your constant values in capitals. So our window, even though it may potentially change, is fine to be in all capitals, and our width and height, those are constant. They're not going to change, so I'm making them all capital values. All right, so now that we have that, let's actually start creating our first Pygame event loop and having something pop up on the screen. So usually what I like to do is I like to define a main function, and inside of this function, I'm going to put all of the code that kind of handles the main game loop in Pygame. So usually when you create a game, you have a loop, and this loop is doing things like redrawing the window, checking for collisions, updating the score, whatever it may be. And anyways, we're going to put that inside of this main function right here. So the first thing that we need to do is set up a while loop. This while loop will be the game loop, and this will actually let our game not just instantly open and then close. So think of it as like an infinite loop, and then we'll terminate it whenever the game ends. So I'm just going to make a variable. I'm going to say this is run, it's equal to true. And then I'm going to say while run. So until we set run equal to false or we break out of this loop will keep running. The first thing that you always do inside of your event loop in Pygame is the following. You say for event in Pygame dot event, like that, and then dot get And inside of here is where you check for the different events that are occurring in Pygame. So don't worry about the fancy syntax, but this is just getting us a list of all of the different events. We're looping through them, and then we can check what these events were, and based on what they were, that we can do something different. So the first event that you usually check for is if the user quit the window. So again, I'll show you how all this works later, and we'll go into more detail. But just to get right into it, we're going to say if event.type equals, and then pygame.quit in all capitals. What we're going to do is we're going to say run equals false like that. And what this will do is end this while loop. So effectively quit the game. Now at the very end of this while loop, what we're going to do is say pygame.quit, and this will quit Pygame for us and close the window. So hopefully this is clear so far, but that's all this is doing. We're getting all the events. If quit is an event that occurs, then we'll exit the while loop and we will quit. Now I'll show you what that event is in 1 second, but let's continue. So now that we have that, let's actually go down to the bottom of our program and let's say if __name __ equals __ main __, then we're going to call the main function. Now, what this is doing for anyone who's confused is just making sure that when we run this file, we didn't, it's hard to describe this, but it's making sure that we're only going to actually run this main function if we ran this file directly. So in Python, if you're not aware, you can import modules, right? So let's say I imported this file from another file. Well, if I did that and I didn't have this if name equals main thing, and I just had the main function, in the main line like this, then it would automatically call this and start running the game. Now, we might not want that to happen, and I only want to run the game if we run this file directly, not if this file is imported from somewhere else. So that's why I'm doing this. You don't have to really understand what this means, but the name is simply the name of the file, and main is telling us, hey, this was the main file that was run. That's the best way I can explain it without going into too much depth. But anyways, enough of this. We haven't seen anything yet, so let's run it and see if anything pops up. So we're going to run, and there we go. We get some window like this, right? Black window, nothing, just says Pygame at the top. Now, the quit event is when we press the X on this window. So when I press that, notice that boom, we quit, we're all good because we handled this quit event. If we didn't do that, it wouldn't have quit the window and we would have had to force quit this application, which obviously we don't really want to have to do. So there we go. We've got our first Pygame window popping up, but that was kind of boring. Now I want to show you how we can draw stuff onto the screen and how we can change the name of that window. So usually what I like to do is I like to go up to the top of my program and say pygame.display.set_caption, and I like to give it some name. So here, this will set that little name caption that you saw that said Pygame window or whatever it was. So you can set this to whatever you want. For simplicity, I'm just going to say first game like that. I'm going to save, going to go ahead and run this, and notice that now it says first game where my mouse is here at the top left-hand corner. All right. So now that we've got that, let's start drawing some stuff onto the screen and doing some more advanced stuff. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how we can fill the screen with a specific color. Then we'll start drawing some rectangles and all of that and getting into the game. So to fill the screen with a specific color, this is pretty straightforward. You're going to use the window. So you're going to say win like that. And then you're going to say dot fill, and then you give this a color and it will fill the screen with this color. Now the question is, how do we actually give this a color? What do we type in for the color? Well, in Pygame, all of the colors are RGB, meaning red, green, blue. So what you need to pass is a tuple with 3 values, 1 value for red, 1 value for green, 1 value for blue. If you're not aware of RGB, the ranges of numbers that you can pass in here are between 0 and 255 inclusive. So that means you can include 0 or 255. So I could say something like 255, 255, 255. Funny enough, this is actually white when you look at RGB because you have the most red, the most green, and the most blue. So anyways, I'm not going to actually pass in a tuple like this because this is kind of hard to understand that this is white. I'm going to make a variable at the top of my program here in all capitals. I'm going to call it white. And I'm going to set that equal to 255, 255, 255. Now, instead of passing that, I'm simply going to pass white inside of here. So this way, if someone else is reading my code, they know that, hey, this is the white color. That's what we're filling the screen with. So let's test this out. I'm going to run the program. And why is it not working? Well, the reason this isn't working right now is because we did not update the display. So in Pygame, the way it works is we can draw a bunch of stuff onto the screen, and you'll see that when we start doing that. We draw all these different things, but the display will not be updated. It won't show the most recent things that we drew unless we manually update it. So what we need to do is say Pygame, like this, dot display, dot update. So now when we update the display, after we fill the display, it will update and it will show us the white. So let's have a look. There we go. Now we are getting a nice white background. You're welcome to mess around with the color and you'll see different colored backgrounds. All right, so there we go. We have white. Awesome. We are making good progress. Now, the thing is, I usually don't like to do all of my drawing inside of this kind of main game loop. I usually like to have the main game loop handling like all of the collisions, all of the logic in the game, and then having some functions outside of that that handle specific things that I can easily call. So what I'm going to do just to clean this up and make it easier, because we're going to be drawing a lot more stuff than just this, is say define draw underscore window. Now inside of here, what I'm going to do is just take as an argument whatever I want to draw. Now in this case, we don't really have anything specific that we want to put on the screen. We're just filling it with a background color. So I'm not going to take any arguments. I'm going to take these 2 lines of code right here, place them inside of this function. So let's do that. And now, right before, inside this while loop, before the pygame.quit, I'm just going to call this function. So now, every time I loop through this loop here, I'm calling draw window, and well, this will draw stuff onto the screen. So let's run this, and there we go. We get the same thing. It is still indeed working. Awesome, so that is great. Now the next thing we need to talk about is frame rate, or essentially how do we control how much this is refreshing? Because if we have a look at this right now, we have an infinite loop, we have some event loop going on right here, and then every time in the loop, we're just drawing something onto the screen. That's fine, but right now we are drawing this white background as many times as we possibly can per second onto the screen. It's solely based on the speed of our computer, right? On my computer, I have a pretty fast machine. This is drawing probably hundreds of times per second. In fact, we could measure it, but I would guarantee it's hundreds of times per second or even thousands. Now, we obviously don't want that because that means on different computers, our game is going to run at a different speed because it's based on how quickly this while loop is running. So to control this, we need to implement something called FPS, or frames per second. So I'm going to define a variable up here. I'm going to say FPS. I'm going to make it equal to 60. And this pretty much will define how quickly or how many frames per second we want our game to update at. Now, most standard games that are not like your big AAA games are running at 60 FPS. So we're going to go ahead and just implement a hard-coded FPS of 60. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a clock object in my main function here. I'll discuss what this is in a second, but I'm going to say clock is equal to pygame.time.clock. And inside of my while loop, I'm going to say clock.tick, and then I'm going to put FPS. Now what this is going to do is control the speed of this while loop. So this will make sure that we are going to run this while loop right here 60 times per second, no matter what, unless our computer can't keep up with that speed, in which case it will run as fast as it can. So clock.tick is just ensuring that we never go over this capped frame rate of 60, which is good. That's what we want. It makes our game controllable and we know it's consistent on different computers. So now if we run this, actually, let's just go up here. You notice that nothing's going to change except just internally, it's only running at 60 FPS. Okay, so that's great, but our game is pretty boring right now. We have nothing on the screen. So let's actually go ahead and implement some characters. So I want to have 2 spaceships, one on the left-hand side of the screen, one on the right-hand side of the screen. I want them to face each other and I want them to be able to move. So let's tackle that next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start importing the images that I'm going to use for these spaceships. So I'm going to start by just saying yellow underscore spaceship underscore image, and this is going to be equal to pygame dot image dot load, and inside of here we're going to load the yellow spaceship image. So if we go inside of assets, we can see that we have 5 things. We have spaceship yellow, spaceship red, space PNG, that's the background, and then 2 sound effects, which we'll get to later. Again, you can download this from the link in the description. It's the GitHub link. So what we need to do is import these images right here. So the red spaceship and the yellow spaceship, we need to load them into Pygame so we can draw them onto the screen. So what I'm going to do at the top of my program is I'm going to import OS. The reason I'm importing OS is because I'm going to use OS, which is operating system, to help me define the path to these images. So these images are inside of the assets folder. The assets folder is in the same directory as our Python file. Remember, that's very important. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look inside the assets folder and then look for these specific images. So to do this, we're going to say os.path.join. This is just a thing that you can do in Python. The reason I'm doing this rather than just separating things with slashes is because depending on what operating system you're on, the directory separator might be different. So this will handle that for us. But os.path.join, I'm going to join the path to the folder assets with the path to the image. So I'm going to say assets and then spaceship like that, underscore, and I guess we're doing yellow first, dot PNG. So I apologize that it's hard to read. Let's actually just zoom out a bit so you can see this. We get yellow spaceship image equals pygame.image.load, os.path.join, assets, spaceship yellow.png. So let's copy that line. I'm going to do the same thing now, except instead of yellow, we're going to do red. So red spaceship image. And now all we have to do is just change this to red because we have the red image right there. So now we have our two spaceship images. My formatter's helping me out here by putting them in a way that we can read them. Now what we want to do is draw these onto the screen so we can actually see them. So before I get too complicated and talk about anything more, let's just show these up on the screen or draw them on the screen and see what they look like. So we'll say win.fillWhite. Remember, I'm doing all my drawing from inside of this draw window. And now I'm going to say win.blit. Now you use blit when you want to draw a surface onto the screen. So technically, these images, when they get loaded in by Pygame, are known as surfaces. So we have to use blit to blit them onto the screen. Now, that's kind of a misleading explanation, but you can kind of imagine that anytime you have text or images, you're going to use blit to put them onto the screen, but I'll go through that later. So anyways, win.blit. We're going to say yellow spaceship image because that's our image right here. And then I'm going to define the position on the screen in which I want to draw these images. So remember that our screen is 900 by 500. So 900 width, 500 height, which means that I really should be drawing my spaceship within those dimensions so it shows up on the screen. Now I can draw it off the screen at like a negative coordinate or something, but obviously that doesn't make much sense to do. Now, another thing to note in Pygame is that when you draw something onto the screen, it draws from the top left-hand corner. In fact, it's probably a good point in time now to talk about the Pygame coordinate system. So excuse me because I'm on a mouse. This is going to be really rough drawing, but let's imagine this is our Pygame window. You know, traditionally when we look at like an axis, right, or we look at a graph, you would say that 0, 0 is right here in the middle of the window. Now in Pygame, that is not the case. We don't have that because we don't have these kind of coordinate systems. So in Pygame, the top left, or 0, 0, is the top left. Sorry, so 0, 0, trying to do 2 zeros here with the mouse, is the top left-hand corner, which means as you increase your X, you're going further to the right. And as you increase your Y, you're going further down. Of course, Y being, vertical and X being horizontal. So if I wanted to be at the bottom of the screen and my height was 500, I would draw somewhere like 400, right? And maybe that would put me, like somewhere around here. So just keep that in mind. This is the coordinate system for Pygame. And when we draw an object in Pygame, we draw it from its top left. So it's consistent. If I draw an image at, let's say, what would this be reasonably, like, 500 by 200 or something like that, we will start drawing it from the top left. So the width of the object or the width of the surface will, be going to the right, if that makes sense. And then the height will be going down. So even though it's at this position, we're not drawing it from the center, we're drawing it from the top left of the image. So keep that in mind. Okay, now we went through that. So let's draw this image. So we want to draw the top left of the spaceship, or we're picking where we want to put the top left of the spaceship. So in this case, let's just put it at like 300, 100, just to see what it looks like. And in fact, for now, let's just draw the yellow one. So we're going to go ahead and draw this, and that's great. Okay, so it's taking up a good chunk of the screen. This is obviously too big. We're going to have to shrink this down, but there you go. You can see the spaceship showing up on the screen. Awesome. Now keep in mind though, if I were to draw this spaceship before I were to fill the screen, so if I do something like this, then what do you think is going to happen? So I go ahead, I draw the spaceship, then I fill the screen with white, and then I update. What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to run, and we don't see the spaceship. The reason we don't see the spaceship is because we drew the spaceship before we filled the screen. So the order in which we draw things matters, and we can draw over top of something. That's totally valid. That happens all the time. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So now we have the yellow spaceship. And what we want to do now is resize this spaceship so it's a bit smaller. So we should pick the dimensions we want to resize it to. And then we also should rotate this spaceship so it's facing the correct direction. So I'm actually going to start by resizing this image, and then I will rotate it. So I'm going to say yellow underscore spaceship like this. And this is going to be equal to, and then I'm going to resize and rotate this image in the same line. I'll show you how to do both of them. So in Pygame, to resize something, you're going to say Pygame dot, not image, sorry, dot dot transform like that, dot, and then scale And inside of here, you're going to pass the image that you want to resize. So we're going to pass yellow spaceship image like that. And then you're going to pass the dimensions that you want to resize this to. So our spaceship was pretty wide. It wasn't that tall. We could look at the aspect ratio to determine what we want to resize this to, but I'm going to go with 55 by 40. So 55 width and 40 height. If we consider that the dimensions of our screen are, or what are they here, 900 by 500, that seems like a reasonable size to make our spaceship, but feel free to make this larger, feel free to make it smaller, feel free to make it square, mess around with it and see what you get. But anyways, that's going to scale our spaceship now, so it'll be much smaller. So let's do the same thing for the red spaceship. So let's say red underscore spaceship like that is equal to pygame.transform.scale, and then red spaceship image. We're going to resize it to the same thing, 55 by 40. Now, since I'm using these numbers multiple times and I might use them later on, makes sense to just throw them in a variable. So I'm just going to say, spaceship underscore width, and then spaceship like that underscore height is equal to, and then 55 by 40. And now I'll just replace these values just in case we ever want to change this. It will work everywhere in the program. So spaceship width and then spaceship height like that. Let's copy this and let's simply put it here. Okay, so now that we have that, before we rotate it, let me actually just update this. So instead of drawing a yellow spaceship image, I'm just drawing yellow spaceship, because yellow spaceship, I know it's kind of messy to see here, is now the one that is scaled down. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. And now we get a much smaller spaceship. That looks much better to me. Maybe it needs to be a bit taller, but honestly, totally fine. So let's leave it at that. Okay, so now we need to rotate this image. So to rotate it, I'm actually going to go and find yellow spaceship. And in fact, let's separate these to make it easier to see. And I'm going to wrap this scale within a rotate. So you'll see how it works, but let's go pygame.image.rotate. Oops. Like that. Okay. And now, I know it's confusing with the brackets. I'll go through it. We're going to pick the angle that we want to rotate this at. So I'm pretty much saying pygame.image.rotate. This is the ending bracket at the very end there. We're plugging in this as the thing that we want to rotate, which is the scaled down yellow spaceship. And we pick how much we want to rotate it. So rotate it. I want it to rotate to the right, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. Now let's see if that's correct. We might have to rotate it 270. I forgot which way it was facing originally, but let's see if this actually gives us the rotation. So let's run. And there's no Pygame. Oops, sorry guys. This is not pygame.image.rotate. I just got an error there. This is pygame.transform.rotate. So make that fix there on line 15. Okay, so run now. And there we go. We can see it's facing the correct direction. Okay, so we've done that successfully now with the yellow spaceship. Now we want to take the red spaceship and rotate it, but so it's facing the other way. So let's copy pygame.transform.rotate. Let's wrap this here again. And then let's go comma, and let's rotate this one 270 degrees because we want it to face the other way. So now we can draw the red spaceship as well. So let's go down here and let's say win.blit. Oops, didn't mean to open that. Win.blit. Let's blit the red spaceship. And let's put it a little bit further away. Let's put at 100, 100. Or actually, let's put at 700, 100. Okay, so take a quick look at this. Make sure your code matches. Now let's run. And there we go. We have our two spaceships facing each other. All is looking good. Okay, so now we have the spaceships. Now I want to show us how we can move these spaceships around. So to move these spaceships is not actually super complicated, but we need a way to keep track of their X and Y position, I guess, as well as their width and height, and then to change that position and pretty much just change where we're drawing them to be at their X and Y position. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write a little bit of code. I'm going to go a bit faster than I've been going. And then of course we'll stop and go over everything to make sure that you guys understand. Let's go down into our main function. And now what I want to do is I want to define two rectangles, which are going to represent my yellow spaceship and my red spaceship so that I can control where they're moving to. So just follow along and then we'll explain what it is. So red equals, and I'm going to say red, this is going to represent our red player, is equal to pygame.rect, like that. And inside of here, what I'm going to do is simply define the position or a rectangle that represents this red spaceship. Now you'll see why we're doing this, but the arguments, for the rectangle are X, Y, width, and height. So I define the X position, the Y position and the width and the height that I want my red player to be at. So we already know what the width and the height are going to be because that's going to be equal to whatever we scaled our spaceship to, right? Which was spaceship width and spaceship height. Good thing we stored that in a variable. But the X and Y we can pick. Now we want the red spaceship. I mean, we can decide this, but let's say we'll put it on the left-hand side of the screen. So in that case, let's make its X and Y something like this. So we'll make its X position 100, and let's make its Y position 300. And then for its width and height, we already know what this should be, spaceship width and spaceship height. Okay, so now we're gonna do the exact same thing for the yellow player here. So let's, instead of red, let's change this to yellow. And then let's just change its X position so it's over near 700, so they're far away. All right, so now we have red and we have a yellow rectangle. All I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pass this rectangle, so actually both of these rectangles, red and yellow, over to my draw window function. So now inside of draw window, I'm simply gonna take red and I'm gonna take yellow. And rather than drawing my yellow spaceship and my red spaceship at a kind of predefined position, I'm gonna draw it at whatever position my red and yellow argument are at. This way I can modify red and yellow, and when I pass it to draw window, it will change where we're drawing these rectangles. So these spaceships, sorry, rectangles just because we're representing them with rectangles. But for our yellow spaceship, we're gonna draw this at yellow.x and yellow.y. Now, the reason we have access to .x and .y is because yellow is a Pygame rectangle, and it defines that the x is this and the y is this, so it just makes it really nice for us to use. So yellow.x, yellow.y. Now for red, we're going to say red.x and red.y like that. So now we draw a red and our yellow spaceship. Now to show you how this would actually move around, let's just do something really simple. Every single loop, I'm going to move my yellow spaceship 1 pixel, just so you guys can see it moving on the screen. So I'm going to say yellow.x plus equals 1. All this is going to do is add 1 to the yellow x position and move it. In fact, let's actually change this to red because red will have more time to move. So this will move 60 pixels per second because the clock is ticking at 60 FPS, and we're updating the X position 60 times and adding 1 to it. So hopefully that's clear, but let's run this. And now notice that we have a red spaceship moving in the incorrect direction on the screen. And I noticed that I actually put these spaceships on the wrong side because of the way that they're facing. So we have two options. We can change where they are. So we can just change 700, 100, or we can change their rotation. I think it's easier to just change this right here. So let's change 700, 100, so they are on the right side of the screen. Let's run this. And now you can see it's moving backwards, but they are on the correct side of the screen. Now, the reason this is moving again is because we're updating the X position and we're drawing it at the X position. So as we change red here, well, we're passing that updated red over here, and then it's moving, right? So hopefully that's clear. But anyways, that is how we would move it. So now what we need to do is we need to actually change the X and Y position when we press the arrow keys, right? So that we're moved based on the user input. So we have two things that we need to check. We need to check whether the red spaceship is moving or whether the yellow spaceship is moving. Now, let me just run this one more time. Yellow spaceship is on our left, red is on our right. So we want to use WASD for the left and the arrow keys for the right spaceship because that just intuitively makes sense on the keyboard. So let's start doing this. I'm going to start doing it for the WASD keys. So for the spaceship on the left, which I can never remember. I think it's the yellow one. Yeah, it is the yellow one. And then I will show you how we can do it for the red and how we can kind of clean up the code a bit. So there is multiple ways to do this in Pygame. You may have seen if you've watched other Pygame tutorials of mine that I don't use the method I'm going to use here. The reason I'm going to show you this method is because this allows you to press multiple keys at the same time, whereas the other method I've shown previously, which I'm just not even going to bother showing here, only lets you press one key at a time. And actually, we'll show it later in the video, so I can talk about it then. But anyways, what we're going to do is say keys underscore pressed is equal to Pygame dot keys, actually, sorry, just dot key dot get underscore pressed. What this is going to do is every single time this while loop is running and we reach this line, so 60 times a second, it's going to tell us what keys are currently being pressed down. This way, we can just look at all of the keys, check if the ones that we're looking for are pressed down, and if they are, respond to that press. This also means that if the key stays pressed down, it will still register that it's being pressed. So it's super useful, and well, you'll see as we get into this how this works. But all we have to do is say if keys underscore pressed, and then inside of here, pygame.k underscore and then the name of the key that we're checking for. You can kind of see a list is popping up on my screen here on how they work. The ones that are special keys are in all capitals, and the ones that are just letters or numbers are usually just lowercase, although I guess you can't really capitalize a, a number. But anyways, we're going to start by checking up, down. No, we'll go left, right, up, down. So the first key is going to be A, so this would be left, right? So let's just leave a little comment here. Let's say this is left. So if we press the left key, what should we do? Well, we should move the spaceship to the left. How do we do that? Well, if we looked at the top left being 0, 0, that means if we're going to the left, we're moving closer to 0, 0 on the x-axis. So let's subtract from our x value to move us backwards or to move us to the left, right? So closer to 0, 0. So this, since this is for the yellow spaceship, we're going to say yellow.x minus equals, and then what should we minus here? Well, how much we want them to move when they press down this key. Now, since we're going to use this multiple times, it makes sense to go to the top of our program. Right after FPS, we can say velocity, or vel, is equal to, and then I'm just going to set this equal to 5. Feel free to change that around and make that whatever you want. But let's make that 5. And now let's say yellow.x minus equals velocity. Now, before we go any further and get into more keys, let's test this and see if this is working. So keys pressed equal pygame.key.get_pressed gives us a list of all the keys. We check with this expression right here if the A key is being pressed. If it is, we modify the X, so subtract values from it, which will move us to the left. So let's try this. I'm going to press the A key and notice that I can move left. Obviously, I can't go anywhere else. There you go. And now I'm off the screen. So that's something we're going to have to check as well. If we're off the screen, we're not going to have to let someone, or we're going to have to disallow someone from moving if we're off the screen. But for now, that's fine. We'll do that after. So now let's handle the other keys. So we can actually copy this line right here. Let's fix the indentation. Now, instead of the A key, let's do the right key, which is going to be D. So let's change this comment to right. I actually just want one space for my comment here. And now yellow.x, since we're moving right rather than subtracting the x, we want to add to the x. So let's add to it like that. And now let's try both these keys. So now I can move left and right, but I cannot go up and down. And keep in mind, I can go off the screen in either direction. So again, something that we're going to have to check. Okay, so we've done that now. Now let's do the up and down key. So we can copy this again. And this modification will be pretty easy. So now for up, that's going to be W. For down, that's going to be S. So let's change this comment to be up. Let's change this comment to be down. And now instead of the Y being modified, or sorry, instead of the X being modified, I kind of spoiled it. The Y is going to be modified. So that's actually all we have to do. But what this is doing now, if we're moving up, we need to subtract from the Y because the top left is 0, 0. So when we go down, that's adding to the Y. So when we go down with S, we add to the Y value and that will move us down. So let's save that. Let's check this. I'm going to run. And now I can move up, down, left, and right, and kind of on diagonals because I can press the same keys at once, right? So if I press down and left, or I press up and right, you can see that I'm moving diagonally. So that's great. Now what I want to do is actually take this, and I want to put this in a separate function because it's going to get kind of messy if I'm doing this twice inside of this loop right here, right? So I'm just going to copy all of this code that I just wrote. I'm going to write a function here. I'm going to say define yellow underscore movement like that. Now, actually, we could say yellow handle movement or something that makes more sense. Yeah, yellow handle movement. Inside of here, it's going to take an argument called keys. And all I'm going to do is the exact same thing that I had before. And actually, this argument is going to be called keys underscore pressed. And I'm also going to take in yellow. Now, it may seem that this is overcomplicating things, but trust me, it's going to be nicer when we do the other movement for the other character. We're taking in that keys pressed list. We're also going to take in the yellow character. Our code doesn't change whatsoever. We've just moved it so that it's kind of separated and it's easier to see. So now what I'm going to do inside of this loop is I'm going to call yellow underscore handle movement like that. Really, I probably should have called it handle yellow movement, but that's fine. We're going to pass keys underscore pressed, and then we're going to pass yellow like that. Now what this will do is it will give the keys pressed list that we need, and it will give our yellow character, and then we'll just do everything we were doing before, but inside of this function. Now, you can probably guess how we're actually going to handle the right players, or what am I saying, the right players, the red player. All we need to do is copy this function. We'll just do a paste like that. And now we're going to do the exact same thing, except instead of yellow, it's going to be red. And instead of ADWS, it's going to be up, down, left, right, or I guess left, right, up, down. So let's change this to red. Let's change the name of this function to red as well. And then we can just change all of these yellows to be red. I'm just going to do them manually, but if you're fancy, you could use the find and replace. All right. So exact same thing. Now we're going to change our left, right, up, and down. The arrow keys are really easy. It's literally just K underscore left, K underscore right, oops, K underscore down, and K underscore, oops, well, I did in the wrong order. K underscore down, K underscore up. All right, so that should be good. We don't need to change anything else. Now all we need to do is call this. So let's call this function red underscore, if we could do it in the right case, red underscore handle movement. Let's pass it the same thing, keys underscore press like that, and then red. Now the red movement will be handled. Let's make sure this is all working. So let's run this. And you can see that I can move my left guy, and now I can move my right guy, and they move at the same time with no issues. Awesome. So that is great. We're making good progress, but now we can move off the screen, right? So we need to handle this so that we can no longer move off of the screen. But before we do that, just because it's going to make this part easier and less repetitive, let's handle the fact that in the middle of our screen, we want a border, right? So I don't really want my red and yellow spaceship, because you remember the game we made at the beginning, to kind of be able to face like right beside each other. I want them to have their own halves of the screen and not be able to cross over. So let's make a rectangle that's kind of a border and divides the middle. And then we'll draw that on the screen and make it so that our characters can't move past that border. So let's go to the top of the program, and we're just going to define wherever we want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to say border in all capitals, and this is going to be equal to Pygame, you guessed it, .rect. This is just going to be a rectangle, and we'll just draw this rectangle onto the screen. So I need to pick where this is going to be. So let's be clever about this. Where should my rectangle be? I need the X and Y position, and then the width and the height. Well, the X position we'll need to figure out. The Y position is obviously going to be at 0 because we want to start at the top of the screen and go all the way down. So we're going to say Y is equal to 0. The width and the height. So the width, we can kind of pick what we want the width to be. I'm just going to make it 10. The height needs to be the height of the screen because we're starting at 0, so it needs to fill the entire screen. And then the X is what we need to figure out. So I want this to be exactly in the middle of the screen, which means I can say width over 2. That's going to give me 450, right, to be in the middle. But then, since we have a width of 10, let's just go to Paint here quickly. I'll show you what happens if we do that. So let's say we have our screen. You know, this is width over 2, and this is like right in the middle of the screen, okay? So this is me trying to do a 5 with my mouse. This is 450, okay? Now, if I draw a rectangle here that has a width of 10, what's going to happen is, I know this is like a really exaggerated width, but we're going to draw it like this, right? I don't want to draw it like that. I want to draw it like this. So how do I do that? Well, I need to subtract half of the width so I can figure out where the 0, 0 position of my rectangle should be. Because really, I'm not drawing the rectangle from the middle, I'm drawing it from 0, 0. So I need to draw it such that it will be in the middle of the screen when I draw it, if that makes sense. So anyways, the point of this is saying that if we have a width of 10, I need to subtract 5 from its X position, so put it at 445, so that way it draws in the middle. So let's do that. Rather than, I guess, since our width is hard-coded, I'll just subtract 5. And now, once we draw this on the screen, you'll see that it is right smack in the middle. So let's draw this. Let's go here, and let's say win.blitz. No, it's not going to be... Actually, okay, you guys are going to be confused by this, but we're going to draw this another way. So we're going to say Pygame.draw.rect. So we're taking a rectangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we're drawing this on the window. So the arguments for this specific Pygame function is the window or the surface that you're drawing this onto, in this case, just our main window. Then we need to pass a color that this rectangle is going to be. So I actually want this to be black. So what I'm going to do is define another color here. I'm going to say black is equal to 0, 0, 0, because, well, that's the color code for black. It's just none of red, green, or blue. So anyways, we define black. So now we're saying we're drawing on the window. It's color black. What are we drawing? Well, we're drawing a rectangle. So I just pass in my rectangle, which is border like that, because border is equal to a Pygame rectangle. So that's all we have to do. So let's go ahead and try this. gonna press run. And now we get a nice black border right perfectly in the center of the screen. Now, of course, I can still go over it. Notice that we're drawing actually below the border. Are we on top of it? No, we're on top of the border. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't really matter if we're on top of the border or not. But now we need to make it so that we can't actually cross this border. So really, all we have to do to make it so that we can't go off the screen is not let our player move if they're going to move off of the screen. So we just check if pressing this key would move them off the screen. And if it will, then we'll just not let them press it. So inside of my yellow and red handle movement, it's kind of annoying. I should have done this before so we could have just copied it in. We're just going to make sure that we can't move off the screen or into the border. So for yellow, on the left-hand side of the screen, yes, on the left-hand side of the screen, what we're going to say is and, just in this if statement right here. And we're going to check if by moving to the left, we would have a position that is in the negatives. So that is not equal to at least 0. That would tell us that we're off the screen because the 0, 0 of our image would be, well, not on the screen. So I'm just going to say and yellow. Oops, did I mean to press that? Yellow.x minus velocity is greater than 0. So what this will tell us is if when subtracting the velocity from our current y position, that will be greater than 0 or not. If it is, we won't let ourselves move any further to the left. So the reason I'm doing minus is because we're obviously going to subtract to move to the left. Now we'll do the exact same. Well, actually, we're going to do a different thing for the right. We're going to say and yellow.x plus velocity. The reason it's plus is because now we're moving to the right. Now in this case, we don't want to check if it's greater than something. We want to check if it's less than something. Now what do I want to check if it's less than? Well, I want to check if it's less than the border in the middle of the screen. Because if we look at the screen, right, this is on the left-hand side, we don't want to be able to move past that border, which is in the middle of the screen. So we'll get the border's x position, and we'll put that here. So we'll say border.x. So this will not let us move past the border's x position. But the issue with this is you have to remember that we're drawing the image from the top left. So technically, the width of the image can still move over the border because the 0, 0 position wouldn't be past that x. Now, hopefully that makes sense. But to show this to you again, we go back to trusty paint. We have our border in the middle of the screen. Let's say this is our rocket ship like this. Technically, this 0, 0 is less than this border's x, but its width is over top of it. So what we need to do is check the width of the image as well and make sure that the 0, 0 plus the width of the image isn't going to be over top of that border. So a lot of explaining here, but all we have to do for that is simply say yellow.x plus vel plus yellow.width like that. And again, this is another property of the rect. We can call it .width, and that will make sure that we are not over the border. Okay, now we'll do the same thing for up and down. So for up, it's really easy. We're going to say yellow.y minus the velocity is greater than 0. And we'll do the exact same thing here, except instead of the width and the x's, we're just going to check the heights. So we're going to say yellow.y, plus velocity, plus yellow, not .width, but .height is less than. And actually, in this case, it's not going to be border.y. This is simply going to be height because it gives us the height of the screen. So this is making sure that the height and our image cannot move further down past the screen. Now let's just test this. Then I'll do the same thing with red. So run. And now notice that I can't move any further down the screen. Okay. I can't move left off the screen. I can't move right off the screen. And in fact, this is blocking quite a bit. And same thing here. Now, there's a slight problem going down. I'm not sure exactly what that is. All right, so I just paused for a second because for some reason my yellow guy can move further down the screen. I'm not actually really sure why that is. So a simple fix for this, I don't usually recommend this, but since it's not that important based on the game we're making, I'm just gonna add a few pixels to this right here. So I'm pretty much gonna say and yellow.y plus velocity plus yellow.height is less than, and then height minus 5. Now what this should do ideally is just make it so that we can't move as far down. So let's just rerun this. And actually, sorry, this is already running. So let's close that and run again. Okay, now we can move. Okay, so 5 clearly wasn't enough. We can't move as far down now, but let's just make this 10. So let's go height minus 10. Now Let's run the game, and same thing, eh? Okay, so let's make this a bit more. Let's make this 15 pixels. Let's run. Let's see it. And there we go. Now we're like perfectly at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so that's what I wanted. Now you might be wondering why on the other edges we're not like touching them immediately. That's because the actual size of this image is a bit bigger than what's showing up on the screen. That's sometimes a problem. Like if you take an image and it's like really small compared to the actual dimensions of the image, then the rectangle around that image is going to be bigger than what the actual image is. So that's pretty much why we can't cross this border here, because this image actually kind of extends further out. You just can't see it because it's a transparent background. Anyways, hopefully that makes sense. Let's do the same thing for red now, and then let's get into firing bullets and some more fun stuff. Okay, so close that. Oh, I launched this game like 12 times. Okay, great. Okay, close it. All right, so now we're just going to copy this and do the same thing for red. So instead of yellow, just change this to red. We can literally copy everything and just change all the yellows to red. So, and red, oops, not like that, and red.x, and red, copy this one here. This one will be red, and same for this. Okay, and red, and red. All right, so now we have that. Let's just test this last time, make sure all is good. Come on, run. What's happening? Invalid syntax. Where did I make a mistake? Let's see. It is saying, I can't even see because my window's not big enough, at red.x. I forgot the and sign on all of these. Great. Let's add the and sign back, or the and word, I guess. Okay. Run now, and there we go. There. So now yellow's good, red's good. But red, see, so red can move across the border. Now, the reason red can move across the border is because I forgot that we need to limit how far it can move to the left, not to the right. So let's go to red, and actually we do need to change some of these things. So for moving to the left, rather than checking if it's greater than 0, we want to check if it's greater than the border dot x plus the border dot width. Okay, so we're going to have that there. Then for moving right, this isn't going to be reliant on the border. This is going to be reliant on the edge of the screen, which is simply going to be the width of the screen. So hopefully that's clear why we're doing this, but now we're making sure that we can't move further left than the border. And going to the right, this is different than yellow, obviously. We can move as far right as we want, so long as we don't go off the screen. So let's run this now, and let's try red. And there we go. We can't move to the back of the screen. And the border, yeah, we can't move past the border either. Down is good. Up is good. Awesome. We are looking good. All right, so now what I want to do, since we've just finished that, is I actually want to start talking about bullets. So how we can actually have projectiles firing around the screen. Now, this is a little bit more difficult than what we just did, but of course it's important to cover in this tutorial. So to handle bullets, what we need to do now is have a separate key that each character, each person can press that will fire a bullet or a projectile from their character. So to do this, we need to maintain a list of all of the bullets. So the first thing I'm going to say is bullets is equal to an empty list like that. We also need to decide how fast we want these bullets to go. So I'm going to make a variable here. I'm going to call this bullet underscore velocity. And we can either decide to make this slower than the characters or faster than the characters. But since I want this to be faster and make it a bit harder, we're going to make it 7. Again, feel free to play with these numbers. So we're going to say bullet vel equals 7. So now what we need to do is make a way for us to actually create a bullet and have it kind of fired around the screen. So I'm going to show you now how we can handle the presses of the left and right control. So usually I would use something like the space key to fire a bullet, but since we have multiple people playing on the same keyboard, we can't use space because only one person can press that. So I think it makes sense to use the left control and the right control to press to fire the bullets. This way, you don't get sticky keys when you're pressing the shift key, which is what I would have done previously. And obviously, we don't want to use enter and caps lock because, well, caps lock is not an intuitive key to fire a bullet. So we'll go with right and left control. Now, we're going to do that, but the thing is, I want each player to have a limited number of bullets. So I don't want them to be able to just spam bullets as many as they want or fire them like rapid fire on the screen. So that also means that I don't want players to be able to hold down the key to shoot bullets. I want them to have to press the key each time, so they have like a very methodical shot, right? Not like, say, in Call of Duty where you're just holding down the trigger the entire time. I want them to have to actually press it each time. So let's do that. The way we're going to do that is by not handling the key presses this way. We're going to handle it this other method. There's not really names for them, so it's hard for me to describe them, that I talked about at the beginning of the video. So what we're going to do is say if event.type equals Pygame.keyDown, like that. Now this is telling us, hey, we pressed a key downwards. Then what we're going to do is fire a bullet. So we need to check whether we press the left control or the right control. So if event and then, oops, like that, dot key is equal to Pygame dot, and then this is going to be K underscore left. I think it's LCTRL. Yeah, LCTRL is left control. And then otherwise we'll say if event.key is equal to Pygame.k underscore R CTRL, standing for right control, then we will kind of create a bullet for our character. So the idea here is that I want to have a list of bullets. This list is going to store all of the red player's bullets and all of the yellow player's bullets. Or in fact, to make this easier, let's actually just do two lists. Let's say red underscore bullets equals that, and let's say yellow underscore bullets equals that. So what we'll do is we'll have the red bullets list store all of the red players' bullets. Yellows will store all of the yellow players' bullets. And then we'll move these bullets around the screen and kind of add them to the list. So to create a bullet, we'll just add one to the list, and then we'll draw these bullets at their X and Y position, and we'll automatically move them so that they're going kind of in the direction that they were fired. So the first thing is to create the bullet, obviously. So to do this, for left control, we want our bullet to be going to the right. So let's do that. So we're going to say, I guess, who is on the left? I always forget. I think it's yellow. Yeah, yellow's on the left. We're going to say yellow underscore bullets dot append. And just to make this easier to read, I'm going to say bullet. And the bullet is just going to be equal to a Pygame rectangle. I don't have any fancy images for this one. So we're just going to say Pygame dot rect, like that. And we're just going to create a rectangle that is at the position that we want to fire it from. So if we think about this, where should we place the bullet? Well, the bullets really should be placed at wherever the yellow character is, right? We want the bullet to come from their body. So since the yellow character is facing to the right, the bullet should kind of spawn or appear at the edge of their body. So at their X position plus their width. That way, immediately when you press the fire button, you see the bullet kind of coming out of the character. So to do this, we're going to say that the X position of our bullet, and we're just going to make it a rectangle again, is going to be at yellow.x plus yellow.width, like that. Now, if we think that this is too far away from the character, because remember, the width of the image is a little bit further than the actual character itself, we could subtract a few pixels and it would be like more inside. Doesn't really matter, but anyways, we'll just say bullet equals Pygame.rect yellow.x plus yellow.width. Now for the height, we can say this is going to be yellow dot y. Now this is going to be weird, but we're going to say yellow dot height over 2. So we're taking the yellow dot y position, which is the top left-hand corner of the image, and then we're adding the height of it over 2. The reason for this is that so that it comes directly in the middle of the character, because if we did it from yellow.y, it would come from the top left of the character, which we don't want. We want this to come from the middle of the image. So we simply add half of the height to put it in the image, to put it in the middle. And really, if we want to be even more precise, we should then subtract, or we should then add, depending on what, actually, it's going to be subtract in this situation, half of the height of the bullet. So the height of the bullet, I think, is just going to be 5 pixels. So I'm just going to subtract 2 because I don't want this to be a decimal number. But anyways, you guys will see. I apologize. This is a lot to take in at once, but I just want to make sure this is perfect. So yellow.x plus yellow.width to put that in the middle X position, or sorry, to put that on the edge of the image. Then yellow.y plus yellow.height over 2 minus 2. This is so the bullet comes directly from the middle of the character. Then the width of the bullet is going to be 10 pixels and the height is going to be 5. So that is our bullet. And then all we're going to do is append this into the yellow bullets list. Perfect. So let's copy this and let's do the exact same thing except for red for our right control button press. So now instead of having yellow.x, this is just going to be red. And we'll literally copy the same thing, except we need to remove this plus red.width. The reason for this is the red character is facing to, I guess, the left of the screen. I know my hand positions are probably wrong, but it's facing to the left. So its bullets are going to move towards 0, 0, which means we want the bullet to come out of actually the left side of the character, not the right side of the character. I would run this, but there'll be a crash right now if I do that. So let's actually, I'm just going to try to go through this. The character is facing to the left. So we want to start drawing the bullet at its actual left edge, which really is its just X position. So instead of adding the width to it like we did with yellow, we're just going to put red.x. Now the height will be the same thing because we do want it to be in the middle for the height. So red.y and then red.height. And then literally everything else is the exact same. It's just the edge in which this bullet is appearing. We want to be different. Okay, perfect. Now, last thing, and there's actually more before I can show you these bullets firing. We want to make sure that each player has a finite number of bullets. So to do this, we need to define another variable, and we're just going to call this num underscore bullets like that. Or actually, to make it more clear, we'll say max underscore bullets. And we'll set this equal to whatever we want. I like 3. You guys can change that, but I like 3 bullets. So now, before we actually go ahead and check if we can do the left control or we can do the right control, we want to make sure that we don't already have 3 bullets fired on the screen, because if we do, we need to wait until those bullets disappear, go off the screen, whatever, before we can fire another one. So I'm going to say, and the len of right, what am I saying? Right. Red, no, this is yellow. Yellow underscore bullets is less than max underscore bullets. So if the amount of yellow bullets that we have, which is defined by the length or the number of bullets in this list, is less than our maximum bullets, we can go ahead and fire another one. Otherwise, no, don't add another bullet to the list because we already have the maximum on the screen. Now, same thing here. And the len of red underscore bullets is less than max bullets. Perfect. Now, this will allow us to actually fire bullets on the screen. Now, because it's going to take a second before we actually see these, I'm just going to print out red underscore bullets and then yellow underscore bullets. So this way, when I start pressing the right and left control key in my console down here, where all this gibberish is appearing, you will see it popping up the bullets list. So let's do this. You can see that it's empty. Now, when I press control, boom, there you go. We have a button or a bullet inside of the list. I press control again. I press the other control, and you can see that there we go, going ahead and adding to the list. Now I realized as I did that, and good job we did, that here, instead of having yellow bullets, this needs to be red bullets dot append because obviously that just wasn't working with yellow. It was adding all of them to the yellow list, which we didn't want. So hopefully that's clear, but that's how we have the bullets. Now they're in the list. When I press left and right control, boom, they're getting added. And well, it will work the maximum. It just wasn't working before because we had a bug. This was yellow instead of red. Okay, perfect. Now we have that. Now we need to move the bullets and we need to see if they hit any of the characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another function that can handle this for us because it makes sense to kind of separate everything out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another function down here. I'm just going to start typing it out, then I'll define it above. And I'm going to say this one is handle bullets like that. Now we're going to pass the yellow bullets, the red bullets, and the yellow character, or the yellow rect, as well as the red, I guess as red as well. The reason for this being that we want to check if any of these bullets collide with either of the characters, because if we do, well, we'll need to do something about that, right? And same thing, we need all of the bullets so that we can handle moving them around the screen and drawing them and all that. All right, so now let's code out this handle bullets function. So let's go here, it doesn't really matter where we put it, and let's say define handle underscore bullets. Let's have this take the yellow bullets, the red bullets, the yellow character, and the red character. Okay, so what this function is going to do is move the bullets, handle the collision of the bullets, and handle removing bullets when they get off of the screen or collide with a character. So what we'll do is we'll loop through all the yellow bullets, check if they've collided with the end of the screen or with the red character. Then we'll loop through all the red bullets and do the same thing except with the other character. So let's do this. I'm going to say for bullets in yellow underscore bullets like that. Then I'm going to start by moving the bullet. So since it's a yellow bullet, it's coming from the left, which means we need to move it to the right because it's coming from the character on the left. So we're going to say bullet.x plus equals the bullet velocity to move it to the right. So we move it, and then after we move it, we're going to check for collision. So we're going to say if yellow, now there's this fancy thing in Pygame called collide rect, and we can pretty much check if the rectangle representing our yellow character has collided with the rectangle representing our bullet. So this is pretty easy. All we do is just pass bullet right here, and what this does is tell us that, hey, yellow did collide with the bullet, or the bullet did collide with our yellow rectangle, or it didn't. So this is true or false, but this is a really easy way to check for collision. Use collide rect. Keep in mind this only works if both objects are rectangles, which they are, and that's why I used the rectangles. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to do something kind of fancy. If we collide with the yellow character, the first thing that we need to do is remove this bullet. So we can just say yellow underscore bullets dot remove, and we can remove the bullet. That's fine. We're going to delete the bullet because it's gone. It collided. But we need to tell our main game loop down here somehow that we collided with the red character, right? We need something to pop up. We need to remove health, whatever it is. We need to do something. But I can't directly modify anything in my main game loop from this function, right? Other than the stuff that was passed to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post an event. Now in Pygame, there's these things called events, right? Just like event.quit, just like event.keydown, right? Whatever. We're checking the types equal to pygame.keydown, pygame.quit. So I'm going to post an event, create a new event, and then we can check for that event inside of here and do something if that event occurs. Now this event is going to be red collided, or bullet hit red, or red hit, or whatever we want to call it. We'll do the same thing for yellow, but we're going to post an event that we will then check for in this while loop. So to do this, we need to first create this event. So I'm actually going to go up to the top of my program here. We'll do like kind of a new section. I'm going to say in all capitals, yellow underscore hit, and then we'll say red underscore hit like that. And this is going to be equal to something that's kind of weird, but pygame.user event plus 1. And for this one, pygame.user event plus 2. This just represents the code or the number for a custom user event. Since we're going to have multiple user events, we can add 1 to this one and add 2 to this one. So now we have 2 separate user events that we can check for and handle. I know this is strange, but this is how you create a new event. You say pygame.user event plus some number, obviously going up in sequence. So +1, +2, +3, +4. If these were both +1, they would be the same event because they would have the same underlying number representing them. This right here, to my understanding, is really just a number. Like it's, 450. It's some number. We don't know what it is. We just add 1 to it to make sure we have a unique event ID. That's pretty much what we're doing. So yellow hit and red hit, those are my 2 events. So we're going to go down here. We're going to go into here, sorry. And up here, we're going to say Pygame, like this, dot event, dot post. And we're going to post a Pygame dot event. I think it's dot event like that. And inside of here, we're going to pass the event that we want. Now, actually, sorry, this should have been red, not yellow. So red.collide rect, because we're checking if the yellow bullet's hitting the red character. So you guys probably saw that, but that should be red. And the event we're going to pass post is red underscore hit. So this is telling us, or we're making a new event that's saying that the red player was hit. Now we'll literally copy all of this and do the exact same thing for not our yellow bullets, but for our red bullets. So we'll say red like that. We'll change red to yellow. And then instead of yellow bullets, this is going to be red bullets. Instead of red hit, this is going to be yellow hit. Now this is the exact same thing, except now we're checking the red bullets, but we need to move the red bullets in the other direction because we're firing from the right of the screen, moving to the left, closer to 0, 0. So we subtract the bullet velocity. So this handles our yellow bullets. This handles our red bullets, and that should be it for moving the bullets. So let's actually try this out, and let's see how many mistakes that I've made, assuming we made any. So refresh. We have our 2 ships now. I'm going to press Control, and we got an issue. Deprecation integer is required, but got type float. I'll be right back. Just going to have a look at what the issue is here. All right, so I found the error, pretty silly one. I should have came up with this. Pretty much we cannot have floating points when we create a new Pygame rectangle. So for both of our bullets, we need to actually put 2 slashes here for integer division. It's fine. This is going to round anyways. It'll be okay. But we just need to do integer division. So red.height integer divided by 2, yellow.height integer divided by 2. So that way we don't get any floating point issues. Now, same thing here with this border. So I'm going to go to our border and we have width over 2. We're just going to change this to over 2. So that way, again, we don't have that floating point issue that we were running into before. But this was indeed working despite of those 2 issues. So just fix those division signs to be 2 division signs, so // But I realized that we're not drawing any of these bullets. So let's draw these bullets onto the screen because it's going to be hard for me to show you that it's working without drawing them. So inside of our draw window now, I want to take, let's just take a list of bullets. So what we'll do is we'll combine you know what? I can't do that because it's going to be drawing the wrong color. Let's take red underscore bullets and let's take yellow underscore bullets. Doesn't matter what order we take them in. And let's draw these bullets onto the screen. So after I draw everything else, we'll draw our bullets. So we're going to say for bullets in red underscore bullets. Then what we'll do is we'll say pygame.draw.rectangle. We'll draw these onto the window. These are going to be red. So this is an opportunity to create another color called red. So let's go here. We're going to say red is equal to 255, 0, 0, because red, well, is all red and nothing else. We also need yellow. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, can I remember my primary colors? I'm just going to look so I don't mess this up. I mean, I believe this is red and green creates yellow. I think that's correct. So let's go here with yellow. So 255, 255, 0. Okay. And now we have red and yellow. So we can draw pygame.draw.rect, window, color, red. And what are we drawing? Well, we're going to draw the bullet, which is really just a rectangle. Copy this, do the same thing. And the only thing that we need to change is the color. So this is going to be yellow and this is going to be yellow. There we go. So we have our 2 colors defined. We're now going to draw all the red bullets and all the yellow bullets on the screen. So we just loop through them and just draw all of them out. Okay, so let's refresh or let's run this and draw a window missing 2 required positional arguments, red bullet and yellow bullets. That would make sense because I forgot to pass them. So let's go down to our main function here. See where we have draw window. We're going to pass the red bullets. So lowercase red bullets and lowercase yellow bullets. Awesome. Quickly, just so you guys can see everything, I'm going to zoom out, give you an idea. This is what the main function looks like in case you guys are on a larger display and you want to see all of it. This is what the other functions look like. Just going to kind of scroll through so you guys can have a look here and pause the video if you need a specific part or if I'm going too fast for you. Okay, so let's zoom back in. Let's run and let's see if this is working now. So I'm here on my left guy. I press Control. Boom, we fire a yellow bullet. Kind of hard to see on the white background, but also notice, let's go with the right one because you'll be able to see the red, that this bullet, when it hits my player, it's disappearing. That's awesome. This is working. And boom, we're good to go. So now what we need to do, and also notice if you try to hit Control a bunch of times, it only lets you shoot at most 3 bullets at a time, right? Which is exactly what we wanted. If I go up here, now I can't shoot any bullets until these go off the screen. And in fact, I forgot to handle the fact that the bullets go off the screen. We need to remove them. So let's do that next. Awesome. So much stuff. I always forget how much stuff we actually need to do. So now, after we check this collide rectangle, we're going to check if any of these bullets are off the screen. So to do this with the yellow bullets, all we have to say is if bullet.x, and this one is going to the right, is greater than, and we're not going to bother with the width of the bullet or anything. It's fine. We'll just make it disappear when it gets to the edge. We'll say bullet.x is greater than the width of the screen, then yellow bullets dot remove bullet. But we'll just do an else here to make sure that we don't. So this will be elif, so that we don't potentially remove the bullet twice. Anyway, so we'll do that. Now we'll add an elif here. We'll say elif bullet.x is less than 0, because that would be when it's off the screen if we're subtracting the velocity. Then same thing here, red bullets dot remove bullet. So that should be good, just checking if it's going off the screen in either direction. Okay, so let's try this now. When I press Control a bunch of times, boom, I should be able to press it again. Awesome, they're getting removed. All is good. All right, so before we do anything else, let's actually just change the background because my eyes are hurting with that yellow on white. So we'll change it to that nice space background that I showed you at the beginning. So to do this, we need to load in our space background. If we go to our assets folder, we can see we have space.png. So we're just going to say space is equal to pygame.image.load, and then we're going to load in os.path.join. So os.path.join with the assets folder like that. And then we want to load in space.png. Now that's fine. We can do that, but I'm also going to rescale this image because it's really big to be a lot smaller just so it looks nicer. So to do that, we'll say pygame.transform.scale, and then we'll wrap this image around, and inside of this, we'll put the dimensions. Now we have perfect dimensions for this. We can just make it the width and the height of our window. Now this might make it a little bit kind of stretched. We'll have a look at how it looks, but I'm just going to make this width height. So we're resizing it to that. So now, rather than filling the screen with white every single iteration, and actually, let me show you what happens when I don't do that, because that's interesting. So before I draw the background, I'm going to show you what happens when we don't fill the screen with white. Look, you can see this. I'm just moving around all over the place. The reason this is happening is because Pygame does not remove the last drawing that we made, right? It just keeps drawing stuff onto the canvas. So if I don't draw a white background every single frame, or I don't draw something that covers the entire screen, then you get all this kind of movement stuff because it's not erasing anything that it previously drew. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting. So let's now put that image onto the screen. I'm going to say win in all capitals .blit. We're going to blit space, and then we're going to put it at 0, 0 because this is the background. So it can just start at the top left and fill the entire screen because we already know its width and height is that. So let's go ahead and run. And there we go. We get a nice space background. Actually, it doesn't look bad at all. In fact, this looks pretty nice. So I'm going to leave it like that. Awesome. Then we can go. There you go. Yellow looks a lot nicer on that background. Awesome. So now let's handle those events. So when we actually get hit, we need to do something. We need to have some health or something like that. Then we're going to add sound effects. We got a bunch of stuff. Well, actually not that much, but a few more things to do. So now inside of my main event loop, remember, just a quick refresher, we're posting these events, right? Yellow hit and red hit. So when we post these events, they just get added to this pygame.event.get queue that's kind of appearing with all of the events. So all we have to do is just inside this for loop, check for these events. So if event.type equals red underscore hit, then we'll do something. And if event.type equals yellow underscore hit, like that, then we'll do something else. So this is a perfect time to implement a notion of health. So we want to have both characters have some number of health, and every time they get hit, that's obviously going to subtract. So to do that, pretty straightforward, but we're just going to make two variables here. We're going to say red underscore health is equal to 10, and yellow underscore health is also equal to 10. Whenever a player has 0 health, again, feel free to change these numbers, then we'll say that the opposite player has 1. So that'll be kind of the objective or how you win or lose our game. So if red is hit, what's the obvious thing to do? Subtract red's health. So red health minus equal 1. If yellow is hit, then we'll say yellow underscore health minus equals 1. Then what we want to do is now check. Actually, we don't need to do it inside of this for loop, but we can do it outside of this while loop. If either player has health that is equal to 0, and if they do, the opposite player will win. The way I'm going to do this is interesting, but I'm going to say if, let's say if red underscore health is less than or equal to 0, and then I'll say if yellow underscore health is less than or equal to 0, I'm actually going to define this variable. I'm going to say winner underscore text equals, and I'm going to say yellow wins like that. Now on the other side, I'm going to say winner underscore text is equal to red wins. This is the text that I want to appear on the screen when either of these situations happen. We'll get into this in a second, but I just want to start defining it. Now above here, I'm going to say winner underscore text equals a blank string. And I'm going to check in one more if statement. If winner underscore text does not equal blank, then inside here, someone won. So the basic logic behind this, we have this variable called winner text. It's equal to nothing. If either the red player or the yellow player has lost, so they have 0 health, then we will set the winner text to be something other than empty string. In the situation where winner text, after we check both of this, is not equal to an empty string, someone won, we should display that winner. So we will get to that in a second, but now what we want to do is show both of these scores on the screen. And then once we've done that, we just have to add sound effects, handle someone winning, and we're pretty much done. We're getting very close. So let's do this. Let's start showing the score. To show the score, that means I need to pass the score to my draw window, and I need to somehow draw that score in the window. So I'm just going to pass the, I guess it makes sense to pass red first, so we'll pass red health and yellow health like that to my draw window. Now let's go to draw window. Let's now take inside of draw window the red underscore health and the yellow underscore health like that. And now inside of here, what we'll do is we'll actually draw their score or their health on the screen. Now to do this, this involves using fonts. We have to actually render some text on the screen. So this is where we get into our next step. So what we're going to do at the very top of our program is we're going to say pygame.font.init. Now I just took a quick pause there because as you guys can see, I spilt water on myself, so that's great, but we'll continue. That's fine. I will survive. Anyways, you're going to put pygame.font.init at the top of your program, and this is going to initialize the Pygame font library or whatever it may be. Then what we need to do is define a font that we are going to use. So it's getting kind of messy up here. I'm just going to do another kind of little section, and I'm going to say that the health underscore font is going to be equal to pygame.font.sys font with these specific capitals. We're going to define the name of the font, which I'm just going to use Comic Sans, and then the size, in this case, I'm going to pick 40. So what I'm doing here is I'm just defining the font that I want to use, Comic Sans, size 40. We're all good. We can continue. All right, so now that we have the font defined, we need to use it. So we're going to go inside of Draw Window. I'm going to show you how we can actually put font onto the screen. Now draw this wherever you want, just obviously after the background's drawn. I'm just going to draw it after the spaceships, meaning that it will overlap our spaceships. Actually, you know what? Maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe we want our spaceships to go over top of this font if that situation occurs, which it could. So let's start by doing this. Let's say red health underscore text, and this is going to be equal to Pygame, or sorry, not Pygame. We're going to say score, not score, health underscore font. Finally got it right. Third try. Dot render. Now we just defined this font, right? We're going to use this font to render some text. Now the text that I want to render is the following. I want to render health, colon, and then space plus the string of red health. So we'll take whatever that number is, convert it to a string, and concatenate it with health. Then we need to say 1 for anti-aliasing. I'm not really going to talk about what that is, but you just always put 1 as the middle argument for our purposes. And the color of this text, which is going to be white. So red health text is health font.render. It's equal to health plus whatever the health is, and then 1 white. Same thing now for the, not red text, but for the yellow text. So we say yellow health text. Now what we've done is we've created kind of 2 text objects, and we want to draw these on the screen. So to draw them on the screen, we're going to say win.blit. We're going to pick, well, I guess we already know the window. We're going to pick what we're blitting, which in this case is red health text. And we need to pick where. Red is on the right side of the screen. So that means I want to blit it at an X position that is like right at the edge of the screen. I'm going to do this dynamically. You can hard code a number if you want, but the correct way to do this, or the way that will look the best, is width minus and then red underscore health text dot get underscore width. This will get the width of that text and subtract that from the width of the screen. So the top left position where we're blitting this will be like right at the edge. And then I'm also just going to subtract 10 pixels just so this has like a 10 pixel pad from the very edge of the screen. Where do I want to blit it on the Y? I'll blit it at 10 because it's going to be right at the top of the screen. We'll just make it 10 pixels down. By having this -10 and this 10, we're padding it so it's 10 from the right wall and 10 from the top wall. Now we'll do the same thing or a very similar thing for our yellow text. So win.blit, we're going to say yellow health text. And then where do we want it? We're actually just going to put it at 1010. Reason we can do this is because we don't really care about the width of it because it's going to be the left border that we want padded from the left wall and then 10 pixels down as well from the top. So that's what blitting it at 1010 will do. Anyways, this will give us the red health text, the yellow health text. It'll be showing up on the screen. So let's try this actually. We handled the events. We're passing in the health. Yeah, we're like very close to done. So let's run this. And now you can see the health is showing up. So we have it in the corner. Boom, move that like that. And then notice that the health gets updated. But for some reason, the health is changing for both of them. So I think I just have a small bug. So let's have a quick look here. We have that red health. So yellow health -1, red health -1, red hit, yellow hit. Okay. We're passing red health, we're passing yellow health, okay? For some reason, they're both getting updated. So I guess that means that this event must be triggering for both of them. So let's try to see why that's happening. So I'm just scrolling around wondering why this isn't working, and I'm realizing that, well, red health is in both positions here. So this needs to change to yellow health because I had red health, so obviously it was drawing the same thing. So anyways, let's try this now. Run, and now if I hit someone, only the health updates on one side, which is what we're looking for. So we're very close to done. We just need to handle the situation where someone wins and add sound effects. So let's do someone winning first. This is actually really straightforward. I'm just gonna make a function. What this function is gonna do is just draw text on the screen that says blank person won, and you'll see how this works. So I'm gonna say define draw winner. We're gonna take in some text that we wanna draw, and then we're gonna make a new font. So let's go to the top. Let's go with our other font. Let's say winner underscore font is equal to Pygame, like that, dot font dot sys font. This should be Comic Sans. Well, you can make whatever you want. And then I'm going to make this size 100. We'll make it nice and large. So now we'll use the winner font to actually render the text. So we'll say winner underscore font dot render. We'll render the text, anti-aliasing 1, color white. And then we'll draw this onto the screen. So we'll say win.blit. We'll blit the winner font. And we're going to do this nice and fancy and have it perfectly center in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to go inside of here. I'm going to say width over 2. Now we'll actually double divide it by 2. Did I do that somewhere else? I'm not sure, just to make sure we don't get any errors. Although width over 2 is an even number, so I think that's fine if we do that. We'll say width over 2 minus, because width over 2 again is the direct middle of the screen, minus the, I need to, I've made a mistake here. Okay, let's go text. Draw underscore text equals that. We need a variable. Draw underscore text equals that. I don't know why I thought blitting winner font was going to work, but draw text is equal to winner font dot render. That's better. So now we'll say width over 2 minus draw underscore text dot get underscore width. This will get the width of the text, so how wide it actually will appear on the screen, over 2. This will put it directly in the middle of the screen because it will take whatever half the width of this is and subtract it from the X position. So that way when we draw this, it will be perfectly in the middle of the screen. I kind of went over this before. We'll do the exact same thing for height. So we'll say height over 2 and then minus draw underscore text dot get underscore height over 2. Again, get height is just going to give you the height. Might be smart to do integer division here, but I think this will be fine. Then we're going to say pygame.time.delay, and we're going to delay this for 5,000 milliseconds, which is 5 seconds. You'll see why, but what this will do, and sorry, we also want to update the display. So before we start delaying, we're going to say pygame.display.update. So what this is doing is we're going to call this function when someone wins. So for 5 seconds, we are going to show the winning text, and then we're going to restart the game. So the reason I'm doing this and I'm not doing it inside of draw window is because I want to just pause the game whenever someone wins, show this text, and then just restart it immediately after. That's why I have this pause. If you want to change the pause to be longer or shorter, just 1,000 multiplied by whatever seconds you want to pause it for, and that's how you pick the delay. Okay, so now inside of winner text here, we're going to say draw underscore, no, not window, draw underscore winner, and we're just going to pass it the winner text. Because what this will do is then give it the winner text, it will draw it on the screen, we'll pause for 5 seconds, it will appear, and then we will break. Now when we break, this will bring us to pygame.quit, which would usually quit the game. Now, we can do that for now, so let's actually just do that, and then I'll change it so it just restarts the game. So here, let's just spam control a bunch of times, and make it so that we actually win. So there you go. Boom, we hit it. It says yellow wins, appears on the screen. Wait, it's going to close the game in a second, and boom, go ahead, or the game goes ahead and closes. Now, if we don't want the game to quit, what we need to do is make it so that we don't quit the game here, but we just restart it. How do we restart it? How we started it originally, just by calling this main function. Since we define any game-specific variables in here, when I just recall the main function, it will redefine these variables and the game will just restart. So instead of having pygame.quit, I'll just say main like that. But that means that what I need to do now when we actually do quit the game is say run equals false, as well as pygame.quit right inside of here. So hopefully that's clear, but this means now whenever we press the X, it will actually close, because if I removed pygame.quit from here and I didn't quit, then we would just stop the while loop, but we would restart the game whenever you press the X button, which obviously isn't what we want. So we have that now. We can do one last test. Then we're adding sound effects and we're done. So let's do this. Let's just test this out. And let's keep going. Boom, yellow wins. Give it a few seconds and it should just restart the game. Okay, there we go. Restarts the game. We get put back in our original positions. We have 10 health. We can fire our bullets and we're all good. Awesome. So let's now add the sound effects, which are super simple, and then we will be done. So the first thing that I need to do is load my sound effects. Second thing I need to do is load my sound effects. First thing I need to do is initialize kind of the sound effect library in Python. So I'm gonna go to the top here. I'm gonna say pygame.mixer.init, and this just starts kind of like the sound aspect of Pygame so that it will work. Anyways, now that we have that, we're gonna load in a mixer sound, which will allow us to start and stop a sound whenever we want. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a variable. I'm gonna call this bullet _hit _sound. And this will be when we actually hit something, that'll be the sound. And then we'll say bullet _fire, like that, _sound. And now let's load these in. So we're gonna say pygame dot, and then in this case, we're gonna say mixer dot load. And we're gonna load from os.path.join. The start of the path is assets, and the end is simply the name of what we want. So the gun silencer, funny enough, these are the sounds I've used, right? The gun silencer is the one for when someone collides, and the gun silencer is for when someone shoots, and the grenade is for when it collides. So I'm just gonna say grenade +1.mp3, and then we'll just copy this line, do the same thing, but change grenade +1 to be gun plus silencer. Did I spell silencer right? Yeah, .mp3. So now we have both these sounds, and if we want to use them, it is really easy to do this. All we have to do is go down, and I'm just going to make it so that whenever we fire a bullet, so whenever this happens, we actually put that sound, right? So now I'm just going to say bullet _fire _sound .play. Or is it .start or is it .play? I think it might be .start. Let me look at my other code here. So actually, no, I've been lied to. It is .play. Okay, so we're gonna play the sound like that. So bullet fire sound .play, and the same thing here. So whenever we fire the bullets, we'll play the sound. And then whenever we get hit, so whenever we lose health, we'll play the collision sound. So we'll say bullet _hit sound .play, copy that, and paste that there. So that's it. That adds the sound effects. This should be our game. So let's run, and pygame.mixer has no attribute load. Okay, so let me see what this is actually called. I thought it was called load, but I guess it's called something else. So I've made a mistake. This is actually not supposed to be load. Where is load? This is supposed to be sound with a capital S. So just change that there. This happens all the time. I just forget the syntax. Pygame.mixer.sound. And then this should work. So let's run this now with the proper syntax. Let's run. And bullet sound, unable to open file, assets, grenade +1.mp3. Now it looks like I do have grenade +1.mp3. For some reason that's not working. I'm just gonna go ahead, and I don't usually recommend doing this, but since I don't know the mistake, I'm gonna try assets / grenade1, and then we'll just do the same thing here. So we'll remove the os.path.join. I don't think we actually need it for this specific sound, or for the way that we're loading these. And then we'll just do that. So we'll just kind of, make the path ourselves, assets / grenade +1, and so on. So let's try this now, see if all is good. Unable to open file. Okay, so give me 1 second. I will be right back. Okay, so it turns out that there's actually a corruption of these MP3 files. Of course, that's going to happen to me at the very end of the tutorial. But I promise you that the code I just wrote, and I'll zoom out so you guys can kind of see all of it. And I'll just slowly scroll through as I conclude here. The code that I just wrote, so the way I loaded that, that's totally fine. Like even the os.path.join, that should work. And then to play the sound, all you do is .play. So just trust me that this does work. For you guys, if for some reason when you download the MP3 file, they're corrupted as well, then just find your own sound effects and just load them in. So throw them in the assets folder, name them something, and then load them. I think it's just an issue with downloading the files from GitHub. You can't download MP3 files. But do that, load them in, pick your own sound effects. They should work with .play. It's a really minor part of the tutorial, so I'm not too worried about it. But then you should hear the sound effects when you press those buttons. And well, it does obviously add a lot to the game. Now, I will quickly mention before I leave off here, because this is all we're doing for this tutorial, that there's a lot more stuff in Pygame that you can do. The point of this was really just to get you up to speed, nice and fast, show you how to create a simple game, and show you how to do most of the things that you usually want to do. You know, projectiles, moving characters around, handling collision, all that kind of stuff, loading images, loading sound effects, although that didn't really work, and all that kind of stuff. And keep in mind, like, you know, usually you can separate things out into different files. This isn't perfect what I did, but again, just to give you an idea and really get you kind of started in Python and Pygame. So if you guys appreciate this tutorial, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps, and I hope that this was helpful to you. So with that said, I will see you in another YouTube video.